finally. You're finally there.
In Nepal, you mean?
Yes.
I was able to make adjustments to my plane flight, so I went from New Delhi to Kathmandu, and I landed and took a taxi to a place that had been recommended to me, the Kathmandu guest house. And in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, it was a gathering place for mostly expeditions that would come to climb Mount Everest. So although travel to Nepal was happening more frequently, there were still in 1980, 81, very few single women going. I mean, you just didn't do that in those days. Before I got waylaid in India, one of the things that was on my agenda was to get to a monastery at around 12,500 feet called Dangpoche. And on the full moon of November, at this monastery, Dangpoche, a festival took place called Mani Rimdu. And I was very much into sacred dance. I actually was a dance performer, a semi-professional in Middle Eastern and concert dance, which is why I studied the Bharatanatyam for hand mudras and things. And I really wanted to see this dance festival in a remote monastery, way in the middle of the Himalayas. But I felt that I had lost my chance because there was not enough time for me to trek overland at that point and make the connections. So I had sort of given up. Well, one night, pardon me, I was sitting in a restaurant by the name of Jamali's, and I was sitting alone, and when I had left the Dera in India, I had bought a bunch of books. There weren't a lot of written books about this path, Sant Mat, but there were a number, and I love books, and I'm a researcher and a scholar that way, so of course for me, I could come back with no clothes and a backpack full of books and I'd be happy. So I was reading one of the books I brought from India, and I was sitting in this restaurant, and a man and woman came in and said, "Do you mind if we share a table?" Well, I had the only remaining seats left there, so they joined me. Well, as it turned out, they were leaving the next day to trek to go to Mani Rimdu. And they said, "You have to come." And I said, "Well, I can't do the 10-day trek or whatever, but I will see if I can get there." So what eventually happened is that my friend, now Nepalese friend, Amrita Sherpa, took me to the airport some days later, about a week later, and he got me on a plane. Now this is an airport where there was no English spoken, so had I not gone with Amrita, I never ever would have gotten on this flight. So there had been bad weather up in the Himalayas, and there were about 300 people stranded at this airport at 9,000 feet called Lukla. It's in, a remote region, and it's where many of the Himalayan mountain climbing expeditions, if they can get in and out, they'll fly in and out of Lukla. Well, Lukla is this little airport that's on a mountain town, and it's a gravel airstrip, and when you land, you go uphill, and at the end of it is, a stone wall. And I remember there being a fuselage or something off to the side of a plane that hadn't made it at one point. So when you go to take off, you're going down a slope on this gravel in this small plane, and basically you're going down, 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 and then, it drops off, so you're airborne. It's at 9,000 feet. It was exciting. So three flights got out of Lukla that day. They had 3 flights out and only 2 going in, and Amrita got me on one of those flights, which was a miracle. So I flew into this airport in Lukla at 9,000 feet, and was I scared? You bet I was scared. But I knew I was supposed to be on this plane. So I went. I said yes.